What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 8 of the Nerd Crew podcast. I am your host, Andy York, joined as always by the one and only, I'll give him Tony Stark to my Steve Rogers, Iron Man to my Captain America, Jason Lee. Jason, how are you doing today?
High praise. I'm hanging in there.
It's better than last week with Eddie Brock and Venom.
Yeah, it's an improvement.
I thought I'd be nice to you this week.
Thank you.
But we are so glad that you are listening today. It has been a very slow week in nerd news this week. Normally there's some big story, or like last week, 6 big stories.
Some DC drama.
Yeah, but this week it's been real quiet.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about Iron Fist being canceled after just 2 seasons and what kind of effect that might have on the Netflix originals. We're also going to talk about the Flashpoint movie. Surprisingly being pushed back until 2021. They're supposed to start production in 2019. We'll talk about all that. Plus, we're going to have a little fun these next 2 weeks. We're going to give you our top 20 worst superhero movies this week. And then next week, we're going to give you our top 20 best superhero movies next week. Spoiler alert, our number 1 is the exact same movie. And it's not a shock at all. I can promise you that. But this list is actually a little different. We'll talk about the specs of it when we get around that time. But first off, let me tell you guys how you can find us. You can listen to this podcast on Podbean, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and for the first time ever this week, you can get the audio version of this podcast on YouTube. You don't get to see our pretty faces yet. You haven't earned that yet. But you get to hear our wonderful voices on YouTube here pretty soon after this week, so it'll go up Wednesday as well. The same time that it drops on SoundCloud and everywhere else. So be looking forward to that. You'll find it on the Nerd Crew. That is our channel name. We like to call us the Nerd Crew. So it's the Nerd Crew. You can find us there. But you can also find us in all the other places that you found us before. And what we like to do on this podcast to start off, what we always like to do is we always like to talk about what we are into this week. So Jason, what are you into this week?
This one actually comes from my younger brothers. So I have 3 younger brothers, and I have to credit them with getting me hyped for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This game sounds amazing. So I grew up playing Melee on the GameCube, and having 3 younger brothers, it works really well because you got 4 slots in that game, And I would always main Marth in Melee.
Oh yeah.
And then we also got Brawl once we got a Wii a couple years later, and that was also super fun. But the amount of flexibility that comes with this game, and the fact that they're bringing back every character that they've ever had, the fact that you can change, which this only, I'm only talking to people who are familiar with Smash Bros, but you can change any stage into Battlefield format or what's it called? Final Destination format.
Really?
To where, yeah. But it still keeps the aesthetic and the art of that stage.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's super sweet. And they've got a really cool website up for that game where you can just kind of scroll through and look at all the different things that are happening with it. And there's a ton of music, music tracks, and it sounds. Because Smash Bros. Is just as much a sandbox game as it is a fighting game.
Yeah.
And just giving, that much flexibility and that many options just seems amazing. So I cannot wait for that.
When does it come out? Do you know when it comes out?
I think before the end of the year.
Okay. So a Christmas gift.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Is it for the Switch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm still waiting to get my Switch. I want one extremely bad.
My the brother below me in age, he's getting a Switch, so I don't even have to worry about that.
Yeah.
He's got me covered.
The only reason why I would get it is for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super Mario Odyssey, which looks amazing, and then the new Super Smash. That's the only 3 reasons, and then all the other games that they'll come out with it.
Zelda Breath of the Wild looks super good.
I forgot about that one. That looks really good too. See, the Switch looks a lot better than the Wii, because there wasn't a lot of great games for the Wii.
Yeah.
I remember one of the first games I got for the Wii was Call of Duty. I forget which one it was, but you had to shake the nunchuck just to keep your aim straight. And if you didn't, it would like go in different directions. It was really dumb. I only played it for like
That's
30
weird.
minutes and then I sold it. It was awful. I hated every second of it.
I don't know. I don't know where the premise of playing Call of Duty on the Wii even came from.
Yeah. It was the new system. I was like, oh, that'd be cool. Maybe like you actually feel like you get shot or something because it was a virtual game. No, it didn't work.
The Wii, it's not a very flexible console.
No.
And like the concept of the Wii only lends itself to a few different types of games, and first-person shooter is
not one of them.
One of them
at all. So what I'm into this week is I ventured out and I went ahead and bought a subscription to the DC universe.
Wow.
Yeah, because one, they have like all of the old movies that I really enjoy. Plus, they have the old school Teen Titans cartoon on there.
Oh, nice.
And the Batman animated series and things like that. So that's one of the reasons why. But I decided the first thing to watch is the pilot episode for Titans.
Yikes.
Their new show. And going into it, I'd seen the trailer, and the trailer really made me not excited for this this show at all. It looked like a DC show, and I mean that in the worst way possible. Mm-hmm. But watching it, I was actually entertained, and like it kind of had me hooked where I'm going to watch episode 2. The characters are different. I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything, but the characters are actually kind of interesting. Some of them are kind of interesting where they are at the beginning and how they kind of meet and things like that. It's graphic. It's violent, which is weird. I don't really see the Titans being super graphic. Robin is sort of stupid and grumpy, which we're not going to get into a lot because there's a lot of spoilers. But if you are remotely interested at all, if you read the comics or anything, check it out. I'd give it a watch. I've seen a lot of people love it, and I've seen a lot of people hate it. So it's about the normal DC movie where it splits people right down the middle. There's not really either side, so it's interesting though. But I would give it a watch. It's I can promise you this: it's not as good as Daredevil,
right,
or Jessica Jones or any of those. I'd say it's like a little higher than Iron Fist season 1, which I've only seen one episode of Titan so far, so it could drop below that. But I'd still give it a check. It's pretty interesting. I'm actually pretty excited for episode 2 and seeing what takes place, and then I'll probably lose interest after that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of Iron Fist, I like to try to find good segues into everything we're going to talk about. Thank you.
That's very good.
Somehow, Iron Fist season 2, or Iron Fist as the whole show, has been canceled after season 2 was released, which actually had some pretty decent praise to it. It wasn't like the most loved, but it wasn't as bad as season 1. It kind of seemed like it was moving up the ladder a little bit, and then they just completely canned it, completely dropped it. What was your thoughts when you saw that it was completely cut?
Not altogether surprised. It is kind of strange to me that. So, I think Iron Fist came out before Inhumans.
Maybe.
But whichever way they came out, they both came out last year in 2017. But both of them were produced and for a large part written by the same guy.
Yeah.
And then they go through the trouble of kind of fixing a lot of, which I haven't seen. I have yet to see season 2. But they go through the trouble of fixing a lot of the issues, and they hire a new showrunner for season 2, but then they cancel it after that. So it was, I just came off of season 1, which I thought was like the worst thing I've seen in the entire MCU. I haven't seen Inhumans yet. So from that perspective, I'm not altogether surprised. Also that Iron Fist doesn't have the investment from fans that Daredevil or Jessica Jones or Luke Cage has, or even the Punisher.
Yeah.
What I do see Marvel doing is I do see them kind of sticking with the character, and this is what I hope that they do. They keep the character around and kind of put him maybe in Luke Cage season 3.
Yeah.
And have a lot of that Heroes for Hire dynamic, or they put him maybe if they do like Defenders Season 2 at some point, they put him in that as well.
Yeah.
But Finn Jones said that, in some way or another, the character of Danny Rand, or maybe some of the supporting cast, is still going to be a part of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's for the best, looking at the show as a whole.
Yeah.
Which, again, I haven't seen Season 2, but that could be for the best.
Yeah. Just for your information, Season 1 of Iron Fist came out before Inhumans did.
Oh, okay.
So he really screwed up with Iron Fist Season 1 and then really screwed up in Inhumans Season. I don't think it got greenlighted for Season 2, did it?
No, it got
It was so bad it just got cut.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, there was no fixing that.
No. I actually am this actually makes me a little nervous in general because Disney is getting ready to come out with their new streaming app at some point with all of the Marvel properties on it, which I think include Daredevil, Punisher, all the Netflix shows.
Mm-hmm.
And them canceling Iron Fist kind of quickly and kind of like out of the blue makes me a little nervous that like maybe they're just after Daredevil Season 3, that's it. They're just going to stop the whole series of shows together because Disney wants to do their own thing and go away from Netflix and then not pick up on those characters because they're not really Disney friendly,
right?
To say the least. And so I really don't want that to happen. I kind of hope they keep those properties where they are and let them kind of roll themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But as for Iron Fist, I kind of saw it coming, especially after Season 1, and how boring he was in Season 1, and then he got better in Defenders. He was still boring, but he got slowly better in Defenders.
Marginally.
Yeah.
I think when everyone was making fun of him in like when Jessica was making fun of him in Defenders, that made him more interesting.
Yeah. Have you seen Luke Cage Season 2?
Not yet. That's next for me.
Okay. So I'll save that. And then in Iron Fist Season 2, he got better.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a lot better. The fighting style was better. Everything was better about the show. So them kind of cutting it and canceling it was actually kind of surprising to me. But if any show's going to get canceled from those, I'm glad it was Iron Fist and not anything else. Maybe the Defenders. I wouldn't be upset if there wasn't another Defenders season.
I think they're unsure at this point if there ever is going to be one.
Yeah,
I would be open to it. If it was going to be better, because I would really enjoy, because I think that they've put all these characters out there, and then they haven't really, with Defenders, they didn't do a good job of having them come together.
Yeah.
And with the movies, like the first Avengers was kind of seen as like the ultimate team up thing, where the Defenders just was okay,
Yeah.
So I would really like to see a far better team up of these characters, since they were kind of designed to be that way.
Yeah, but I kind of hope they keep it like what they've done with introducing Punisher in Daredevil Season 2, and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones Season 1,
right?
And Iron Fist, and he's in Luke Cage Season 2. Keeping all these duos together, not necessarily everybody all together at once. Because it makes it more compelling when there's just 2 characters instead of 5. There'd be 5 now,
right?
And so I think that would be better for them. But a Defenders Season 2, I still think would be a lot of people would watch it. It would still be viewing wise. It would still be a big success. It wouldn't be. I don't know how it would be quality wise, but viewing wise, it would be a pretty big success. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like everything was going to fit perfectly for Defenders to be good, and then it just, for some reason, wasn't. Because the idea of the hand and everything was really, a really cool idea. Right. And then it just kind of fell flat.
I feel like between Daredevil Season 2 and Iron Fist, I don't feel like Defenders did enough to make people not be sick of the hand.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, the hand, again.
Yeah.
And it's now there's all the higher ups, and Sigourney Weaver, all the top of the top hand, and it's just okay, but we've already seen these guys in 2 seasons before this.
Now it would be all right if they brought in Kingpin to be the main big guy that like Kingpin with a bunch of other um, B-list villains with him.
Right.
For them to kind of get through. But you never. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Daredevil season 3 and everything. So.
Or even if they introduced just a brand new villain,
Or if they'd have kept Kilgrave alive and let him be the villain.
Right.
That'd have been amazing.
That'd be fun.
But yeah, introducing new characters, I think that would work really well for if they decided to do a Defender season 2. I think that would work really well. All right, moving on. This part will probably be a really quick update and kind of our thoughts on it. But the Flashpoint, I think that's what they're calling it, movie. Was scheduled to start production this year. I think come out early 2020, I believe. But now it's been pushed back to start production in 2019 and not come out until 2021, I think later in the year. So kind of a big pushback for it. Kind of like X-Men Dark Phoenix. It kind of got a big pushback on release date and production and everything. So what are your thoughts on this, plus all of the other DC news coming out of a lot of... DC is basically, it's a dumpster fire now. Like, it's... Before it was, but it was more of a controlled dumpster fire. Now it's just kind of all over the place. So what does this kind of tell you about DC and where they're standing right now?
It seems like it could be damage control. It seems like it could be them pushing it back to kind of like fix things about the movie or try to make it a good movie, which I don't think is going to happen. And I think they're just going to kind of end up leaving a bad taste in everybody's mouth about Flashpoint, which really sucks to me because they already did that with ideas like The Dark Knight Returns and the death of Superman in BVS and like the whole idea of the Suicide Squad in that movie.
Yeah.
I think that the less movies that they do about established concepts, the better. Kind of like Aquaman. I don't think Aquaman is pulling from any one thing in particular, which I don't expect Aquaman to be great, but it's just kind of like, you're kind of making...
At this point, create your own stories. And
right.
Because I think that'll work better for everybody.
Yeah. I would prefer to not have the comic version of Flashpoint and then this probably terrible film version of Flashpoint, which is going to automatically, because it's a film, be far more widely known, more widely talked about. Just with Suicide Squad.
Yeah, the Flashpoint comic's actually one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I love it. And so I'm kind of... And even when, like, the CW show kind of did it a little bit, which kind of made me nervous. But the thing about the CW show is it's actually a really solid show. It's probably my favorite non-Netflix like superhero show right now. They just came out with season 5. I haven't started it yet. I have it recorded on my to-watch list, which is a long list of stuff to watch. But for this movie, I think what this shows is that they don't really know what to do right now. And with Henry Cavill kind of quitting, and then Ben Affleck kind of basically him quitting as well, and then James Gunn coming on to Suicide Squad 2. I think there's just a lot up in the air right now. Which I think is actually a good thing for Aquaman, because the thing about Batman v Superman is it had all the attention. The thing about Justice League is it had all the attention, and then all of a sudden the news broke that they got a new director right at the end of filming, which made everybody go, probably not going to be that good of a movie. Suicide Squad was basically the only thing coming out for them. Wonder Woman was a big hit, but it was still all the attention is on it. Now the attention is everywhere else kind of but Aquaman.
Yeah.
And so I think that's actually a good thing for it, because people can go, oh yeah, hey, let's go watch Aquaman, and then it's actually going to be better than what people thought it was going to be. So I think this plays in their favor. This might be their plan. I highly doubt they thought about it that much. I just think this might be one of those things where the studio doesn't know what to do. Warner Brothers doesn't know what to do. And so I think they're just kind of struggling right now. Well, they've been struggling for a while, but I didn't think they could get any, I don't think they could get on the struggle bus anymore, and they've definitely got back on it for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's kind of our take on it. We want to hear what your thoughts are on both Iron Fist season 2 being canceled and then the Flashpoint movie being moved back, and kind of tell us what your thoughts on it, why you think it happened, and what's going to happen in the future of the DCEU, because your guess is probably as good as ours at this point.
It is a mess.
Yes. So the bulk of our episode, before we get started, is me and Jason this week are going to give you our top 20 worst superhero movies of all time. And then next week, it's going to be our top 20 best superhero movies of all time. Before we get into it, though, we kind of want to tell you what our mindset was when picking these films. And Jason, you can jump in anytime and kind of give your thoughts of, if I forget anything to mention, you can jump in there and tell. We both view superhero movies completely different than regular movies. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes. I do.
We don't grade. We grade harder on these movies in certain areas. Like if the CG is worse, or if the character arcs are worse, or this, that, and the other, than what we would in like a normal non-comic book based movie.
Right. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're just big fans
Yeah.
of these things, and we view them either in a very positive light or in a very negative light. In the grander scale of films, I think that there is a place for, the very best and the very worst.
Yeah.
Superhero movies, but they kind of have cut their own corner, especially with different franchises established and different characters established, in very major films. They've kind of cut their own corner in like the entire film industry. So since we are such, big fans of, a lot of these movies and a lot of these characters, we kind of look at them in a separate fashion.
Yeah.
So I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Secondly, we have our best to worst MCU films on a list. And some of these movies might be on there and higher than other movies that are on our list. And so this list isn't like our thoughts on like the quality of the movie or the how it fit in the MCU or in any other universe. These movies are kind of, some of them may be, and specifically in our best, and we'll mention this next week. So, like some of our best are going to be the impact they had on culture, the impact they had on the movie industry as a whole.
Right.
The big event movies, things like that. That'll be, some of them are higher than what they would be on our normal list. With the worst, this is kind of the ones that either one we were like really excited for that completely failed, two that should have never been made in the first place, and three that were just really, really, really bad. Like, really bad. There's a lot of them on this list that are terrible.
Whenever we, in the future, I'm sure we'll touch on our MCU best to worst lists.
Which are subject to change.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's always like an interesting conversation to have,
Yeah.
that I like having with people, is asking them, hey, what's your best to worst? Even though there's like 20 movies and it takes a while to rank them at this point. But that's more of like a subjective favorites list. Mm-hmm. This list that we're doing right now is going to be more like objective, what we see, reflected in the film industry, reflected in the culture, you know. And also like within the community, importance within the community to comic book fans.
Right.
To fans of different franchises.
Right. And there's one other thing I was going to mention that I kind of forgot. What we did is we didn't just kind of take the internet's word for it. We have seen all the movies on our list, which means that if it's not on our list, we probably haven't seen it.
That's true.
Like for me personally, I haven't seen any of the Superman from the 80 movies. Mm-hmm. I haven't got around to watching them, so they're not on either one of my list. So that's kind of another factor, is if we've seen them or not, because we can't really give a take on the movie if we've never seen it,
Right.
And I hate reading somebody else's stuff and then taking it from that type of thing.
Right. We didn't just go on Rotten Tomatoes and just like,
Which I don't
hey,
trust their
let's do
scores
it.
anyway. So.
Exactly. It's just as much as I trust any other random one person's opinion.
Yeah.
You know?
Like listening to a podcast on somebody's view of a movie. Which, hey, if you haven't checked out our Venom review last week, go check it out. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our worst. I don't know how to say this. Our least favorite? No,
I'd say worst.
Our worst 20 superhero movies. The list of our worst 20 superhero movies.
Of all
time.
Yes.
And we're going to bounce back and forth starting with 20. So, Jason, I'm going to throw you on the spot. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Number 20, Batman Forever. I don't want to preface every discussion with this movie as a piece of garbage, but that's always the first thing that runs through my mind. Yes. When I'm going to talk about any of these movies, because all of these obviously are films that I dislike and would never want to watch again.
Yes.
Batman Forever, I saw it on VHS at a friend's house in the 7th grade, and I was like, this is trash. Even back then, when I had never seen another Batman movie, before that, kind of the beginning of the downfall for Batman. His first two movies, Batman and Batman Returns. I know that Batman Returns at least is on both of our top 20 best lists. Which I don't want to give away both of our lists before before that episode. But kind of the point where Batman fell off in that franchise. I feel like it's kind of overshadowed by Batman and Robin and its terribleness, but it's still
bad
down there.
Yeah. Number 20 for me is actually, I used to really enjoy it when I first watched it, and then I went back and watched it, and I was like, why did I even enjoy this movie? So number 20 for me is X-Men Wolverine Origins.
Yikes.
This movie, I don't know where to begin. First off, it ruined Deadpool.
Right.
And which is a character that I don't know how you ruin. Because his name is Merc with a mouth, and then you close his mouth shut. Tell me how that makes sense. Tell me why having two swords come out of his hand like Wolverine makes sense. Mm-hmm. There's just lasers out of his eyes, like Cyclops, like that. Anyways,
and he can just naturally teleport. Too.
Yeah, because that makes sense. The bullet. What was the bullet? It's been a long time since I've seen this movie. The one that could hurt Wolverine.
Is it an adamantium bullet?
Yeah. Okay, that's dumb. The way that they defeat the villain is that she tells him to keep walking forever, and he just takes off walking. That's dumb. Whoever decided to put Will.I.Am in an X-Men movie should be fired. There's just a lot about this movie that is so bad. It's not even an entertaining. The only good, cool part about this movie is the first 10 minutes of it when you see Wolverine and Sabretooth throughout time.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was cool. That was actually pretty cool of setting them up of hey, they were in this war. They've been through a lot. That was actually kind of cool, and then it just dropped off from there.
And Gambit was there. If
Yeah.
I'm remembering that
Yeah,
right.
and he was okay.
That was weird.
Yeah, there was a lot about that. And Blob. Blob was there.
It's a strange film.
It was a very strange film.
Was Emma Frost in that one?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. That movie was all over the place.
Yeah.
Which I forgot to tell you. I forgot to have you do this. Out of 10, what would you give your number 20 and a letter grade for it?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot with this one.
I feel like a lot of these are going to be the same ratings and the same letter grade since we're doing 20. Batman Forever, 3 out of 10, D-.
Wow. My number 20 is a 4 out of 10, D+. So
Gotcha.
it's not that great. I'll go ahead and go. My number 19 is Batman Forever. So that kind of shows you how bad it is. And I also gave it a 3 out of 10. So a D. So Go ahead with your 19.
Number 19, Steel with Shaquille O'Neal from 1997. A great idea all around. Shocked that it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Creatively.
I've actually never seen it, and I'm okay with that because I've heard about it. I've just never seen it, and I don't have any plan.
Yeah, that's for the best.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on why it was
Not really.
Hot garbage. What'd you give
Not
it?
really.
What
I
would-
mean, what would I give it? I'll go with another 3.
Another 3 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
So a D minus.
Yeah.
Yeah. My number 18 might actually be a little controversial. Not really, sort of. Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi movies. Before I say this, I almost put Spider-Man, the first one, on this list.
Yeah, you're crazy.
I cannot stand I cannot stand Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Cannot stand him with a passion. The only reason why I didn't put this movie on the list is because I found I forget whoever played him, but whoever played Norman Osborn.
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe. I found him very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Very entertaining. He was such a comic book villain that I found him entertaining. That's the only reason why I didn't put this movie on my list.
The charm of all the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies is how comic booky they are.
Yeah.
And how far they take that concept. And with you wouldn't get that with the MCU or the DCEU.
Right.
Because those are, for a large part, a bit more grounded, and a lot of the dumb stuff that they do, the entire universe is kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
To where it's a lot of the tongue-in-cheek dumb stuff felt different, back in the early 2000s with those 3 Spider-Man movies. So I love the first Spider-Man. I think it's great. But
Yeah, well.
that's very strange.
Yeah, we're on different pedestals there. But for Spider-Man 3, the only good thing about this movie was Sandman. I actually really enjoyed Sandman. Everything else in this movie was terrible. To Venom being played by Topher Grace makes no sense because Venom is not supposed to be the same nerdiness as Peter Parker. Eddie Brock is not supposed to be the same build or nerdiness as Peter Parker. So that one didn't make sense. 2, Harry looked dumb as Green Goblin.
Yes.
I did not like that at all. And then 3, the black suit was cool. The black Spider-Man suit was actually kind of cool. But what it made him do was so dumb. The finger guns, man. How can you... And then him playing piano and dancing with Mary Jane, and then that whole thing is just awful.
Yes.
It's not even, this is one of the few times I went to see a movie in theaters and got bored and almost fell asleep in the movie. Because sometimes movies are so bad that it'll keep you awake because you're so mad about how bad it is. This was not that. This was just a boring movie to me. And so that's why I gave it a 3 out of 10, a D minus as well. It was awful.
Yeah, it's not the best.
No.
Indeed.
Okay, I think you're on. Is it your 18?
18.
Yep.
Superman 3. It's interesting how the Batman and the Superman, the early Batman and the early Superman franchises are comparable in that the first one's really good. The second one is, well, I'd say the second Batman is better, but the first Superman is better. And then the third one in both of these trilogies, it starts to fall off. And then the fourth one is a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
So Superman 3, pretty terrible. Not as bad as Superman 4, but we'll get back to that later.
Yeah. I've actually never seen it, so I can't really give a take on it. Was it another 3 out of 10?
Yeah.
Or worse? Is it 3 out of 10?
Yeah, because once I switched to well, yeah, we'll go with 3.
Go ahead and do 17. I feel like I've gone back to back, so you go ahead and do 17.
Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Okay, we both have this one at 17.
Sweet.
I thought so, yeah.
The infamous Galactus Cloud.
Oh, yeah. And
Super
Silver
threatening.
Surfer is one of the most interesting, Marvel characters out there.
Yes.
And they completely screwed him up.
Oh, yeah.
Completely screwed him up.
Agreed.
There's not much about this movie that was good, if any.
Yeah, and they kind of missed the point of the Fantastic Four.
Yes.
And none of the castings were I don't want to say none of them were good. None of them were great.
No.
And it was just kind of like a dumb early 2000s comic book movie, but it had to be the Fantastic Four, you know. And now we've had two different Fantastic Four franchises,
which are to come.
and both of them are awful. Like all
Yes.
three Fantastic Four movies are three of the worst.
Yes.
All three of them are on my list.
They're on my list as well. Yes.
You know, so that's part of the reason that I, for one, am so, you know, and I know plenty of people are so excited for Marvel getting the rights back to the Fantastic Four so that
Yep.
they can actually do them right.
Hopefully. Because apparently it's
for
a
the
hard
first time.
Apparently it's a hard movie to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't seem like it would be, but apparently it's a hard movie
I guess so.
to do. Yeah, this movie was not good at all. So I gave it a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. 16 for me is The Amazing Spider-Man. This movie is
Interesting.
not good either. I really don't like Andrew Garfield at all. He doesn't really fit the Spider-Man role. And then they tried to make him like made a joke every time he wore the suit, like, you know, trying to be like what the comic book was, and it didn't really work for this movie because there's only so much you can do where it's acceptable. Not acceptable, but not annoying. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it worked very well for this movie. Who played Gwen Stacy? What's her name?
Emma Stone.
Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan of that at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot. Like, this was a very forgettable movie. A very forgettable movie.
Yeah. I can remember back in 2012 going to this theater to see Avengers that May and just being like blown away by it, and I'm like, this is like the best thing I've ever seen. You know? And that's the point when I got into all this for the first time. So I went back, and I think it was that July that The Amazing Spider-Man came out, and I was like,
Yeah.
because I had already seen Spider-Man 2, and you know, it would be very difficult for a Spider-Man movie to top that. And I was just kind of like, you know, that was all right.
Yeah, I was not a fan of this movie. I actually gave it a 3 out of 10 as well.
Wow.
I don't know. It was, for a long time, for me personally, it took until Homecoming for them to actually get a Spider-Man movie that was not. I mean, Spider-Man 2 was good.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man 2 was good, but like there was a threshold that they just seemed to not cross, like they couldn't cross, and it was just like finally they got over it, and it was not having Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I think that was it, or Andrew Garfield. But yeah, this movie was garbage, hot garbage, hot garbage. What's your number 16?
Number 16, Daredevil with Ben Affleck. Another terrible early 2000s
Yes.
superhero film with a leather obsession.
Skin
and
tight.
Bullseye is terrible,
Oh my
and
gosh.
Kingpin is terrible. And just kind of tragic, although I am very glad, you know, unlike the Fantastic Four, Daredevil's kind of gotten redemption.
Yes.
And, you know, Daredevil Season 3 is about to come out, so we can just
Yes.
completely block this film out of our minds with the excitement for a good Bullseye, you know, ideally.
And a great Kingpin.
An amazing Kingpin, and we already know Daredevil's great.
Yeah.
You know, and Daredevil Season 1 is amazing.
Just keep Elektra out of it. We've seen
Yeah.
enough Elektra.
Yeah, I enjoyed her in Daredevil Season 2, and then Defenders came along, and I'm like, what's going on with Elektra?
It's not that great. It is not that great. So would 3 out of 10?
Sure.
Okay. What's your number 15?
My number 15, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Wow.
Amazing Spider-Man 2. Definitely worse than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Jamie Foxx as Electro is just inexplicable casting choice.
It didn't make sense. It did not make any sense during the movie at all.
And then spoilers for a movie that came out in like 2015, 2014. I think it was 2014. Just taking another iconic, you know, probably Spider-Man's defining comic book story, the night Gwen Stacy died.
Yeah. And
You know, and putting it in a terrible movie.
yes.
You know, just kind of an unforgivable sin of comic book movies. You can't take an iconic story and adapt it and put it in a terrible film.
Right.
And it's like with Civil War and Infinity War and plenty of other films, Marvel has taken, the concept of a comic book, and I would say that the Civil War movie is honestly even better than the comic book.
I would say that
in a lot of regards. I wouldn't say the same for Infinity War, but Infinity War did an amazing job, of adapting Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet. But it's just kind of tragic, when it's the other way around and it's got to be this garbage movie. And then they throw the Rhino in there at the last second,
Oh, yeah, he was in the movie, wasn't he?
Uh-huh.
And then, the first one was with Harry being Green Goblin, right?
Harry was Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man 2 also.
Okay, that was awful.
Mm-hmm.
That apparently he became an actual goblin.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It was so dumb. It was so bad. And then half a scene after Gwen Stacy dies, Peter Parker's just over it. He's just fine. Yeah. He walks it off. It's like, no, what?
Which is why I am so hoping that if/when, because I'm hoping what I've been hearing is that the MCU has big plans for Norman Osborn.
Yes.
And that's really exciting to me. Even though Willem Dafoe, I already think did a fantastic job in the first Spider-Man movie. I would honestly, I love the Green Goblin as a character. I would love to see them take another route with his character. Maybe even introduce him as the successor to Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Introduce him, him and the Osborn family, as kind of the leader of the next Avengers.
Yeah.
And make that the Dark Avengers.
Yeah.
That could be super cool. But it's you have the Osborns in both Spider-Man franchises preceding that, so that's why I'd love for them to take Norman Osborn in a new direction in the MCU. That could be super cool.
That would be really cool. He's one of my favorites because he's even if you didn't make him, like you were saying, even if you didn't make him the Green Goblin, you just let him be a super powerful millionaire or billionaire, and just let him be the kingpin of the MCU without any powers. I think that would be really cool, and him kind of owning the Avengers or anything like that. That would be kind of cool to see.
And Rhodey was already Iron Patriot in Iron Man 3, which they could use that idea again, especially since if he's going to be the leader of the Dark Avengers, he would take the concepts of Iron Man and Captain America and kind of fuse that together. But I'd be totally fine if he was just kind of the, like you said, kind of powerless, but the leader, of that.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I think that'd be a brand new take on him that needs to happen. My number 15 is X-Men Apocalypse.
Trash.
Yeah.
Or so I've heard, because I have yet to see it, and that's why it's not on my list.
It's awful. It had a lot of potential. A lot of potential.
I remember seeing the trailers, and I was like, this is going to be amazing.
It should have been so good, and it failed miserably. The only good part about this movie was Quicksilver. He was awesome. Everybody else in this movie sucked. It was bad. I do not like Jennifer Lawrence anymore. I like Jennifer Lawrence. Let me rephrase that. I like Jennifer Lawrence. Not her as Mystique. It needs to go away. It needs to stop. It needs... Bye-bye. Apocalypse looked dumb. He didn't really make sense.
Right.
Professor X didn't make sense a lot of the time. I don't know. It had a lot going for it, and then it just failed. I mean, it was absolutely awful. This was... let me look and see. I don't think it was... It's not the worst X-Men movie, but it's there with it. It's bad. It's pretty bad.
Fox cannot end their X-Men trilogies.
No, they cannot.
Hopefully Deadpool 3 changes that.
Hopefully. Unless they go Deadpool and Cable and go that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Which, We'll see. Maybe
Yes.
Ryan Reynolds can save it. But yeah, I gave it a 2 out of 10. Yeah, it was
Nice.
awful. It was awful. Go ahead with your 14.
Number 14, Fantastic Four, 2005, I want to say.
I think so.
We already touched on Rise of the Silver Surfer. Fantastic Four, also terrible. Also, the first iteration of Doctor Doom in movies.
They can't get him right.
And it's the worst, like the worst thing ever. And the same thing with Fan Four Stick. Like Doctor Doom is just the
Awful.
worst thing ever. Another character that I am so excited for the MCU to get back,
Yes.
because he is basically like Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Black Panther, like all rolled into one character.
Yep.
And he's like evil,
Yes.
and it's amazing.
Yes.
And this is the first time that they ruined that. So
Yeah. We never forgive him for it either.
you're right.
It was. Doctor Doom is, like you said, he's one of the best. And so how you ruin him as bad as they did both times, I don't know, which we'll get to later. Don't worry. We're not done with the Fantastic Four. Yeah, that movie was not good. Actually, at 14, I had Hulk 2003. Oh my gosh. I don't remember a lot about this movie, to be real honest.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah. This was the one with. Was this the one with the dogs?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
so.
Yeah. No. That was no. Don't do that ever again.
Yeah, very
Stay-
very strange
Stay away from it.
film.
It was so bad.
And where like the Edward Norton 2008 Hulk,
Yeah.
which I think is somehow better,
Yeah.
kind of played it too safe.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that they had taken a few more risks with that movie.
Right.
And
But at least with that movie, the concept behind it made sense.
yes,
And there were things in that movie that made sense. And it was in the back of our head after the Iron Man, what I'm looking for, end credit scene that set up the Avengers Initiative. We all knew in the back of our head, okay, they're setting up something big here. So we kind of could look past this, man. It was just awful. It was just, I don't remember a lot. I think this is the one where he like throws people through houses and everything. It's don't go watch. If you have not seen Hulk 2003, don't watch it. It's a 2 out of 10. It's awful. Don't watch it. Stay away from it. Stay away from it. Some of the most beloved characters, these movies screw up so easily.
yeah,
So easily. Daredevil, they screwed up.
yes.
All the Fantastic Four and their villains, they screwed up.
Batman.
Batman's been really good and really bad.
There are several Batman movies
Yes.
on my list here, and Superman movies.
Yes.
You know, and it's like Howard the Duck or like Supergirl or Elektra. It's like, you know, kind of B-list characters that it's or
Catwoman.
Catwoman.
Yeah.
Or Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Ghost Rider.
it's
Those
not
type of things.
it's not as unforgivable as, you know,
Batman.
a huge major character or a very important storyline.
Right. Which
yet
is
again.
why, like Iron Man, which we're chasing a rabbit, but we'll get off of it here in a second. Which is why the way they set up the MCU by having Iron Man and like killing it with it is why the MCU is so successful today. If Iron
Right.
Man would have failed, we wouldn't be we wouldn't have an Infinity War, I don't think.
Oh no.
It would have
Definitely
been
not.
it'd have been awful. If Hulk would have came out first, it wouldn't have been the same story as, if Iron Man came out first. So I think a lot of these studios have to realize you have to get the key characters done right. Like if you get them done right, everything else kind of falls into place.
It was because of the success of Iron Man and Iron Man 2 that they decided to do Avengers.
Yeah.
Which is, which was a very good decision.
Very good decision. 13, I had the Fantastic Four 2005, which we've already talked about, so I'm not going to harp on that anymore except for the fact that they destroyed Doctor Doom. Shame on them. It was 2 out of 10. It was not good.
I have got Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance.
Nicolas Cage.
The first Ghost Rider just barely avoided my wrath in the top 20.
Oh, not mine.
But just the idea of Nicolas Cage as Johnny Blaze, yet again, like Shaquille O'Neal as Steel, and it makes me so happy that the MCU has nailed so many, basically all of their casting choices. It's a very important thing when you're making a comic book movie, is adapting a character, to the screen. And Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider is not one of those good choices.
No. No, that movie is a hot mess.
And it came out the same year as it's strange. It came out in 2011, same year as Captain America and Thor.
Did it really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And like just the way it is, it seems like it would have come out in like 2007, but no, it came out in 2011.
Wow.
So
that is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
That is really bad. My number 12 is a movie that we've talked about a lot, and a movie that I've shared my hatred of a lot, and that is Batman vs. Superman. I cannot stand this movie. I cannot stand this movie. This movie would be a lot lower if there wasn't a lot of other, trash movies before it. But this movie was... One, I was very excited for this movie. The trailer made this look like it was going to be the best DC movie probably since The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
This should have been one of the best movies, superhero movies ever. And then you get in there and Batman is now murdering people. Doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Superman is really weird in this movie. Doesn't make any sense. Lex Luthor is trash.
Yeah.
Trash.
The worst.
I'm not a fan of why am I blanking on her name now?
Lois Lane?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of her in this movie. Very boring.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that this movie was not good, but the only reason why this movie isn't lower, one, Gal Gadot saved this movie a little bit. I thought she was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, she was alright.
She was better than Batman and Superman. I was fine with that.
That's true.
That's about it. That is the only thing I really liked about this movie was her. It was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
It was so bad.
I think that it's interesting because the movie begins on that shot of
Superman
of Bruce Wayne
destroying
obliterating the city, and Bruce Wayne comes up and he saves this
little girl,
kid, and he's watching the destruction, and I'm like, okay, this is cool, I can get into this, and the entire movie from that point just slowly unravels until you get to the ending.
Well, the next scene is Superman with a CGI lip.
Oh, right. Well, even that is better than compared to
Doomsday.
Once we get to the ending, and you get to the ending of the film and you're just like, what is happening? How did we get from this cool scene of Bruce Wayne, in the city, watching all of this destruction, really interesting, engaging, to three people. It's Wonder Woman shows up. Is she with you? Oh, I thought she was with you. And it's what am I watching?
Or stop killing each other because both your mother's names are Martha.
Right.
That is awful.
Which that's been harped on a million times,
yes.
but it
deserves to be harped on.
It's the worst.
That and Doomsday. Doomsday was awful. Doomsday is one of the best DC villains.
Mm-hmm.
He's really he would be hard to adapt into a movie because he's weird. But they didn't even. It looked like they didn't even try with him.
Do you remember that? I think it was Michael Bay, that terrible Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot. Doomsday looked like one of those, but on crystal meth.
Yes, he did. He did.
One of the modern Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes,
It was bizarre.
This whole movie was just dumb. I don't know if I'm not good with actors' names, apparently. The dude that played Lex Luthor.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah. I don't know if he was trying to play Lex Luthor or the Joker or the Riddler. I didn't know who he was trying to play. it was just, this movie was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely all over the place, and not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a movie can be all over the place and be entertaining.
Infinity War.
Yeah. Nah, this was not that.
Right.
This was not even close to that. This wasn't even like it's dog poop. Like, it was worse than that.
Yes.
It was bad. It was very bad. What was your number 12?
Number 12, X-Men: The Last Stand.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched these original X-Men movies, I watched them all in a very quick succession, and after X2, I was super stoked, and I was like, because I knew nothing going in, and I was like, let's see what they have to offer. And it was the worst. And this is, of course, the first example of Fox not being able to finish their X-Men trilogies.
No.
Again, just a bunch of really weird stuff, a bunch of really dumb stuff, and then Phoenix Force. And Cyclops is useless, as usual.
Yeah.
I would love if Marvel could take that character and actually do him justice, because Lord knows that Fox did not.
No, they did not.
And Wolverine saves the day. Yet again, because these are kind of just Wolverine movies, you know.
Which I am, if they want to just make it all Wolverine, I'm 100% okay with that. That's what they should have done from the beginning. Instead of make Mystique your number one character.
Yeah, that was strange.
Why not make it Wolverine? Why not make it Cyclops?
Yeah, no, because they have to make everyone hate Cyclops. Which sucks, because
he's one of my favorite X-Men. Cyclops is.
Right, and if he was done well, you know, he could be super interesting, and Marvel has already shown that they can take characters that people don't give a crap about
and make them interesting.
Make that like Ant-Man. You know, like before that came out, I don't think anybody outside of comics cared about Scott Lang Ant-Man. No. You know, but what they need is a great actor and an interesting characterization and a great script, and there you go.
Yep.
People like Cyclops again, but he has never been done right, and this is the best example of terrible Cyclops.
Yeah. And Jean Grey has never been done right either.
Not quite right, no. And I would love for if when Marvel gets the X-Men back, which I know we already touched on this in a previous episode, but if they made them two the focus of the story, and do not bring in the Phoenix Force, because the Phoenix Force Deus Ex Machina is super annoying. Do not have anything to do with the Phoenix Force. Just make like Cyclops and Jean Grey the main characters, you know, and have Professor X be there, but he's kind of doing his own thing. Yeah. Wolverine needs to totally be doing his own thing. Yeah. Put him in the Avengers, you know, if you want to.
Bring Beast in for the Illuminati angle and let that be its thing, you know.
Right. You can team Iceman up with Firestar and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If you remember that show.
Yeah.
I think it's Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Yes, that was a good. That was actually one of my favorite shows.
Pretty lit.
I loved it. Pretty lit. Number 11 for me is actually X-Men: The Last Stand. So everything he just said, I totally agree with. So me and him on the same page with that. What's your number 11?
Supergirl.
Never seen it. I've seen the show. The show's actually pretty good.
I have not seen the show. I've only seen the movie. And it sucks. It's like a spin-off from the Christopher Reeve Superman. And it's just bad because I think that Superman 4 had already come out by the time Supergirl came out. But it was
I think Supergirl came out in 83.
Yeah, around there.
I think
it's kind of the dark ages for comic book movies, I guess.
Yes. Not good. Yeah, I've not seen it, so I'm gonna have to leave all that up to you and I'll let you be the expert on that. My number 10 is Justice League, and I'm actually not gonna say anything. I'm gonna let you do all the talking. We'll get back to that here in a minute, because Jason hates that movie with a passion. So that's my number 10. What's your number 10, Jason?
Number 10, Elektra. Jennifer Garner. The spinoff from the awesome Daredevil movie.
Yes.
Elektra with Jennifer Garner.
The best.
It's terrible. It's like another. It's even more so than Daredevil. Probably reminiscent of that early 2000s, like emo alternative rock, scene
Yeah.
in comic book movies.
Yeah.
And it's trash.
Yes, it is.
And even with my, slight grievances with the MCU Elektra in Daredevil and Defenders, she is leagues above.
Oh, yes.
Obviously.
She was actually very good in Daredevil.
Yes.
Very good in Daredevil. And she was okay in Defenders. In this movie, she was like not even close to okay. She was at the bottom tier.
What weirded me out about her in Defenders, one of the things that weirded me out is that like they call her the Black Sky, and like the hand bets the safety and the security of their entire organization upon this one girl. And it's like Elektra, she's great, she's cool, she's a good fighter.
Yeah.
She's a good assassin, but it's like she's the Black Sky. She's going to be the one to like bring about the renaissance of the hand, and it's like it's one person. Like it's one non-powered individual. If you want to say like someone like Hulk powerful is going to bring about like the renaissance of the hand, then okay, but it's like one non-powered individual.
Yeah.
It was just kind of funny to me. It wasn't like the worst. It wasn't anywhere near this movie.
No,
but
not even close.
That was strange.
Not even close. My number 9 we've actually already talked about, so I'm going to link my number 8 and 9 together because it's part 1 and part 2. Ghost Rider is 8 and 9 for me. I love Nicolas Cage in some roles. Mm-hmm. Some roles.
The bees. Not the bees.
Oh my gosh.
That's my favorite Nicolas Cage role.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He actually is in a new movie called Mandy, which is amazing.
I heard it was
He
good.
is so good in that movie. But in Ghost Rider, he was not the fit for these movies at all. Not the fit. I don't even know what they were thinking with this. I don't think they were thinking. I think that's their number one problem. But like you said before, it did not make sense as to why. When did the first one come out? Because if the second one came out in 2011,
I don't know.
Did the first one come out when Iron Man came out?
Let's find out and see. I'll take this opportunity to throw out there that Norman Reedus would be the best Johnny Blaze, which I think I've said it before, but I'm not gonna rely on people to watch every episode,
right?
Or listen to every episode,
right?
Norman Reedus, Johnny Blaze,
do
the
it.
Perfect casting. Please.
Cast it now.
Do it.
It came out in 2007, so basically,
wow,
around the same time that Iron Man came out.
That's a long wait.
It is
a long wait for the super highly awaited Ghost Rider sequel.
Yes, because the first one was loved by everybody, but it was awful. It was not good. Both these movies were trash. So yeah, that's my 8 and 9 is Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider 2. So go ahead and give me your 9 and then 8.
9 and then 8. Number 9, Batman and Robin. One of the biggest, when you think about bad superhero movies, everybody thinks about Batman and Robin. The thing about Batman and Robin, I think that technically it could rank lower, but I think it is also wildly entertaining to watch. Even though it's the worst thing ever made, it's not like Fan-4-Stick.
No.
To where you watch it and you're just like bored out of your mind.
This had some comedy in it.
Yes.
And it was meant to be. I think the style it was meant to be that. In
one of the opening scenes, which I could just go on and on about Batman and Robin and how hilarious it is. In one of the opening scenes, Mr. Freeze is robbing I think it's the museum or something.
Yeah.
And he covers the floor in ice, and Batman and Robin just pop ice blades out of their shoes, and they've got hockey sticks, and they're going around playing hockey against all these Mr. Freeze minions, and you're like, what am I watching? And then there's this rocket that goes up into the sky, and they take the doors off, and they're falling
Yeah.
from the stratosphere.
Yeah.
and the ship explodes behind them, and they're like surfing on the doors through the air as they're falling to the city, and it's like,
Oh, that's not even.
this is how physics works.
That's not even the best part.
Absolutely.
When he whipped out the Batman card, the Batman credit card. I never leave the Batcave without it. That, oh my gosh, awful, awful. And Arnold Schwarzenegger with his puns every time he shot ice out.
Let's kick some ice.
Yeah, yeah. What was the other one? The what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. And then it's like, come on, man.
Yes, and then he freezes the dinosaur.
Yeah.
I think that's when he freezes this like dinosaur model in the museum.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and then Poison Ivy was in this movie for some reason.
Yeah, Uma Thurman.
Yeah, and Bane.
I keep forgetting that Bane is in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I remember
There are a lot of better versions of Bane than that Bane.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. The voice isn't, but there's a lot of better versions of Bane than that one.
Right.
Yeah, that was.
Batman.
Yeah.
You got to talk through your hands every time you do it. The fire rises.
I still like that movie.
Yeah, it's good.
So that was your number 9?
That was my number 9, and then
Okay.
my number 8.
Yes.
Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Even worse than Superman 3. Superman versus Nuclear Man, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
Something else, man. Yeah, but it's the worst.
It just says Superman 3. Superman Reborn.
No.
See, it came out in 83. A good Man of Steel and a bad Man of Steel.
If they, which I would honestly love if Avengers carried on naming their 4th installment The Quest for Peace. So we get Avengers 4,
Quest for Peace.
The Quest for Peace. Or we get the 4th Batman installment and we get Avengers and Robin. Avengers 4, Avengers and Robin.
Oh my gosh. It's better than Annihilation.
It might be.
Might be a lot better than Annihilation. I can't find the title. I think it's just Superman 3.
That's
I think that's
okay.
what it is. Yeah, I've never seen these movies, so that's, once again, this is all you, and I trust your word that it's not good, so I will not be watching. My number 7 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I absolutely hated this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The only good thing about this movie was the suit looked really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The suit looked awesome. Everything else was trash. They couldn't even get me excited when they set up the Sinister Six in the post-credit scene, and then they never made the Amazing Spider-Man 3. So,
oh no.
yeah, I was very disappointed about that. But yeah, we've talked about this movie already. It was awful.
Mm-hmm.
It was not good. What's your number 7?
Number 7, Howard the Duck. What a bizarre film.
Yeah.
Made by George Lucas.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I did not
Made
know
by
that.
George Lucas. Uh-huh.
I don't know how I missed that.
But yeah, very strange, very weird. One of the first superhero films actually came out in the 80s. Definitely one of the first Marvel films. I think
Yeah.
there was like a very old Captain America film, but this is like the
Well,
first.
they had like the old school Avengers. Like the old school. Have you seen that? Let me see if I can find it.
I think that might have been off a TV show.
Was it?
Mm-hmm. Because I think that this was the first Marvel Comics film, apart from like a Captain America film from a very long time ago.
Well, that's not what I was looking for.
Yeah,
Ah.
it came up with the British television
Yes.
show. Uh-huh.
Let's see here.
I know they had that Incredible Hulk TV series, and they had Thor in an episode of the Incredible Hulk TV series.
Did they really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. Okay, I'm not finding anything about it. It's alright. Yeah, all I keep seeing is the British TV show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I lost place. Number 6 for me is Green Lantern.
Green Lantern.
Awful.
Absolutely
Awful.
terrible.
Just the worst.
Why? Here's my question. Ryan Reynolds is in this.
Mm-hmm.
He's in X-Men Origins Wolverine as Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in Blade Trinity also.
Yeah.
None of which are good. And then he comes out with Deadpool and Deadpool 2, and they're both amazing. So it's very good that he has a sense of humor about it.
Yes.
You know, and about the decisions that he's made in the past.
Yes.
But yeah, they might as well just lump this in with the rest of the DC universe right now because it is at that level of quality.
I think it's worse than that. I think they hit a new low with this movie.
It's worse than some of them.
Yeah. The animated suit was awful.
Mm.
The animated suit was absolutely ridiculous. The whole movie was just dumb. I regretted watching it about 30 minutes into it. I'm pretty sure it was not a good movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was my number 6 is the wonderful Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have as number 6?
Number 6, Batman vs. Superman. Dawn of Justice. So we've already gone over that extensively.
Trash. Number 5 for me, a lot of these are going to be ones that we've already talked about. Number 5 for me is Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
Have we talked about Daredevil yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The one thing we didn't mention, I forgot to mention, was the playground fight scene between Daredevil and Elektra. The weirdest thing I think I've ever seen in any movie.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was awful. Yeah, that was not good.
I'm so glad that Daredevil got redemption.
Yes.
Yes. Through Netflix.
Yeah, he's not like what that movie made him out to be. He's more of a darker, grittier character for sure.
Right.
And he's definitely that in Netflix, on the Netflix shows. He's a lot darker. He's more grittier. And he's more relatable than what Ben Affleck was.
Right,
He's more
grounded.
Yeah, which in this day and age, superheroes need to be grounded. Like, they need... Most of them do, at least.
And it's like the Avengers are living at Stark Tower, or they're living at, the Avengers headquarters, you know, fighting battles against, armies of robots in this foreign country. But then, like, Daredevil just lives in this apartment, you know, with a giant flashing billboard next to it, which doesn't bother him because he's blind. This crappy apartment.
Right.
Fighting just like street thugs, for a lot of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I like how much of a different take they took with the Netflix universe,
with
and
all
they
of
put them
them.
in a very
with all the characters. It's so much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, Daredevil, the movie Daredevil is awful though. So it's number 5 for me.
Yes.
What about you?
Number 5, we have not talked about yet. Fan 4 Stick.
Oh man, that's number 3 for me. So
in 2015, Fox
Lord.
decided to come out with a Fantastic Four reboot, and everyone was like, "All right, sweet. We've already had 2 terrible Fantastic Four movies. There's no way that this one could be any worse than the other 2."
And then Fox said, "Hold my beer," and handed it and showed us what they could do.
Handed their beer to Josh Trank.
Yes.
And we got this, again, super bizarre, out of left field take on the Fantastic Four.
Right. First off, let's talk about the casting choices for this movie. The only one that was actually remotely okay was Michael B. Jordan. Mm-hmm. About it. Mm-hmm. At least for me personally, that was about it.
In theory, I would have been fine with Miles Teller as Reed Richards, but then I saw the actual movie and I changed my mind on that. Michael B. Jordan didn't really do anything in that movie to make me think that he couldn't work.
Well, we see what he could do later on in Black Panther.
Right. But yeah, again, just another very strange film.
And then they get the smallest guy to play Ben Grimm.
Right.
That made 100% sense.
Right.
And then Doctor Doom, the only cool scene Doctor Doom has ever had in a movie is when he made all those dudes' heads explode. That actually kind of got me with it. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. About it.
No, and he looked like complete garbage.
Yes, he looked awful
in that movie. The second case of Fox ruining Doctor Doom.
Yes. Apparently, these movies are extremely hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like we could get a camera or use our phone and do a better Fantastic Four movie than they could do.
Well, and what's the thing about the Fantastic Four, and the thing that makes them important is the family dynamic of these four, very, very different individuals coming together, working cohesively as a team. And they have their disagreements, and they have their issues, but in the end, through science or through power or whatever it is, they're able to overcome, and the Fantastic Four fight some of the most dire threats in the entire Marvel universe, like Annihilus, and Galactus, Kang, and Doctor Doom, sometimes Namor, sometimes the Silver Surfer. They fight all of these super, super powerful people. And I feel like the MCU can absolutely nail that dynamic.
Right.
And I saw kind of shadows of it in Guardians of the Galaxy when they had to introduce this cast of characters who had to kind of come together and be a family.
Right.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of potential with Fantastic Four, specifically in the MCU.
Immense. Yes.
And I think if anybody can do it right, they can do it right. But Fox sure can't.
And do not do an origin story.
No.
Do a like Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah. To where it's like we already know. You know, most people are, since the Fantastic Four are so important.
Right.
And they're so huge, most people already know how they came to be.
At this point, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like at this point, like with don't do an origin story, like a whole big origin story for all the X-Men. Like there's no point. There's absolutely no point.
Right.
And so, stay away from origin stories because they're awful. Most of them are awful.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 for me is Elektra. Well, we've already talked about how great that movie is. So, number 4 for me was Elektra. What about you?
Great. Number 4, Suicide Squad. I hate this movie, and we already went over it in our DC talk. This film is so jarring and bizarre, and as I said before, broken. It is a broken film. And the thing that really sucks about it is that it again was another decision that shouldn't have come when it came, but it came out of left field for DC, and had some kind of interesting creative elements going on, and some things going on in its favor, kind of maybe wash away the bad taste of BVS. And the trailer came out, and it made it look, interesting and cool. And I, if I had to list off top actresses to play Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie would be, definitely on that list, in the top 5. But it came out and it was terrible. It was the worst thing ever. And it was another example of DC just ruining a fantastic property. Because I love the Suicide Squad. I love the idea, of that team. But what do I get?
It's not in my top 20 or my worst 20.
Yeah, you and me kind of differ on that one.
Yeah, actually,
like with Spider-Man.
I really enjoy the movie. It's so dumb. It's not a good movie. I'm not saying it's a good movie. It's not a good movie.
Oh yeah.
But it's one of those ones where it's so bad that it's kind of like Batman and Robin. It's so bad that it's actually kind of entertaining. And I'm not good with actors or actresses' names, so the girl that played Harley Quinn,
Margot Robbie.
Yeah, I think she knocked it out of the park. I thought she was actually a really good take on Harley Quinn. Jared Leto is trash. I'll give you that.
Oh yeah.
Will Smith was not good at Deadshot. The Enchantress looked really dumb.
Rick Flag, your favorite character.
I hated him so much. I hated him so much. I was actually kind of hoping he would die. Captain Boomerang, I actually kind of enjoyed.
Okay, I'll say there are two moments in Suicide Squad that I enjoy. Number one, they introduced Slipknot. This is the man who can climb anything.
He gets his head blown off in like 30 seconds.
Yes, that made me laugh. I don't know if that was supposed to make me laugh.
But it yeah.
I don't know if it was there to like make me laugh and establish stakes, or if it was just there to establish stakes.
Which it did not really.
But
it kind of
made me laugh.
Yeah.
The other moment was when Rick Flag frees them in the bar, and he's like, "Okay, you're free to go," and Captain Boomerang just immediately runs out.
Yeah.
Those are the movie's two saving graces, and they last about a collective 5 seconds.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed Captain Boomerang. Killer Croc was there. He is just there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we differ on this movie.
Also, the fact that it's just such a blatant cop of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I've gone over. I know I've gone over several times on the podcast, but it's just such a blatant, DC saying, okay, well, Marvel just did the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was out of left field, and it was really creative and really funny.
Let's
and all
take
these
a swing
B-list characters,
Yeah.
And then they took their try at it, and it was
not good.
A dumpster fire.
Yeah, it was. But sometimes a dumpster fire can be enjoyable, and to me, it was enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say this: at the end of this, I'll give my dishonorable mentions, and it's in there. So
fair enough.
That'll give you a little bit. 3 for me is Fantastic Four 2015 or Fan4stick.
Fan4stick. That's the only thing we're allowed to call it.
Yeah, Fan4stick. It was awful.
That awesome logo design.
That should have let us know right there that this was not going to be what it should have been. We've already harped on that enough. So, yeah, number 3 for me is Fan4stick.
All right. Number 3 for me is Green Lantern.
Trash.
Yes.
Absolute trash. These are going to be rapid fire until we get to number 1. And then I'm going to let Jason do his thing. Let him run down why his number 1 is what it is. Number 2 for me is Batman and Robin. I hate this movie. Like, as much as you hate Suicide Squad, I hate this movie. It's the dude that plays Robin. He's in the show NCIS Los Angeles.
Chris
something. But he's good in NCIS Los Angeles. And Batman and Robin, he is
terrible.
Awful. I mean, absolutely awful. I'm trying to find it. Sorry. There it is. Chris O'Donnell. That's his name. Yeah, he was awful in this movie. And then, like, the poster boy, the dude that was supposed to be the best Batman, was awful.
Yeah.
He was just... This whole movie was just dumb.
And Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl
was
just so lame and weird.
The only good part about any Batman movie seems to be Alfred. For the most part. There's one trilogy that there's a lot better than Alfred, even though Michael Caine is amazing. Alfred's normally the best part about a Batman movie.
Maybe so.
It's sad that that's the truth. But number 2 for me is Batman and Robin.
Gotcha. Number 2 for me, you know what? I'm going to say it, but we're going to save it for later. Catwoman. That is at number 2 for me, but that will come back later. Do you want to do your number 1 or my number 1?
Yeah, I'll do my number 1 because my number 1's not going to be that long.
Gotcha.
Because my number 1 is Catwoman, and Halle Berry is awful in this movie. This whole... Okay, what was the point of this movie? Like, why even make a Catwoman movie?
Because it was the early 2000s, and...
Did they not see Elektra, though? Like, it was not going to work, first of all, because Catwoman is not... The origin story for Catwoman in the comics should not be the origin story for her in the movies. Specifically for this movie. And
they had it like a cat like burped on her. Like after she died.
Yeah.
And it's like now she comes back and she's got cat powers and it's like cool. Awesome. And I loved so much Batman Returns, and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman in that movie is so cool and like weird and fun. Like funny and weird, in a cool way.
Yeah, well even in the Dark Knight Rises, it grounded the character to where it made sense.
Yeah,
to a point.
I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but Anne Hathaway was way better.
Yeah,
you know?
and like the fact that a cat burglar, so she would be the cat ears, everything that made more sense than a cat burping on her, and then her gaining the powers of a cat.
And she's doing all this like insane, like
In spandex and like real tight spandex.
right? Which I think that if we're gonna ask what the true point of this movie is, I think that was what it was.
Probably.
Was
Probably.
the spandex?
Yeah,
and the leather.
Right, because all the superhero movies, going back to Batman and Robin, you get how many shots of their butt and then their nipples.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's
that
all
kinda
those
started-
movies are.
Right. Was same with Daredevil.
Yeah,
Same with like there's so much leather.
yeah, and it's not
Daredevil.
needed. It is not needed. This movie was awful. I mean, absolutely awful. To the point where if I could give it a negative, I would probably give it like a -5 out of 10. I've seen it one time, and every time it comes back on TV, if somebody else wants to watch it, I leave because I can't stand it, or I just turn it off and go cry somewhere because it is awful.
Halle Berry hates it too.
Yeah, she should. She
Yeah.
should. If your main actor hates the movie, there's no point in it. AKA Green Lantern as well.
Yeah.
Like, that should be a key right there. But yeah, this movie was hot garbage. Hot garbage. So that's my number one is Catwoman. Jason, your number one might be a little controversial.
Da, 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 da. Justice League is the worst superhero film of all time.
I'm just going to lean back and let you talk.
All right. And I don't have a talk prepared, but I do have many thoughts.
Give them.
So, as I have said several times before, going to the first Avengers for me was a very formative experience, and that is the movie that got me into this entire culture. You know, just comic books in general, not even just Marvel comics, not even just Avengers stuff, but comic books in general. And the first Avengers was exactly what it needed to be, and it lived up to the hype, and it performed super well, and it really established that franchise, the MCU, as a lasting competitor and kind of like an industry juggernaut, who at this point has pretty much taken over. They're on top of their game right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're on top of the entire industry because of the success of Iron Man and because of the success of the first Avengers. And that's where stuff started to get really serious. So, we have the DC Cinematic Universe, which we do have an entire episode on, if you want to see more of both of our thoughts about the entire universe, please go check that out.
I think it's our longest episode.
It might be.
It's like an hour and a half of us just diving into everything.
And 3 out of the 5 DC Cinematic Universe movies are on my top 20 worst list. And 2 out of the 5 for you.
Yeah.
So they start out with Man of Steel, which is almost a passable film. Mm. Which for them is like
it's great.
High quality. And then they go to BVS, and then they go to Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman, which we've already talked about a bunch. But Justice League, when you think about a Justice League movie, it should be just like an Avengers movie. Mm-hmm. It should be everything coming together. It should be exciting and engaging and interesting and fun. Mm-hmm. And it is none of those things. I wouldn't say that Justice League on a technical level is worse than Catwoman, Green Lantern, Suicide Squad, Fantastic, like a few of the other ones at the bottom of my list. I do think it's terrible. It's terribly made. But for the fact that this is supposed to be what DC can offer us in film, because Marvel just came out with Infinity War, mm-hmm.
Which is
the culmination of like
10 years of a cinematic universe.
10 years of storytelling, mm-hmm. 10 years of almost 20 movies, and And then Justice League comes out the year before, and it's the culmination of 4 films, 4 bad films, and it manages to be not only the lowest performing, but one of the worst critically performing as well. And critically performing with me. The worst critically performing with me. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Justice League. I think that there were a lot of inexplicable decisions made. I think that something that massively hindered it was switching directors halfway through. Not that I have any faith in Zack Snyder's, vision of the Justice League. I think that he should have been fired a long time ago. But having kind of the amalgamation of his vision and Joss Whedon's vision, because the reason that they brought in Joss Whedon was because they were like, okay, we want you to make us another Avengers.
Yeah.
Which he couldn't do. He couldn't
especially
fix this broken movie.
Especially like the time they brought him in.
Right.
Like I think he had all the wrap up shoots. I think that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole movie was already shot except for like a few parts that he had to direct.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, and part of the reason that the first Avengers, and the entire MCU in general is so interesting is that you can attach yourself to almost any character because almost all of them are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the complete opposite with Justice League. There are no characters that I'm rooting for.
No.
I enjoyed Wonder Woman in her own movie, but in this, it was probably her worst appearance in the DC universe to date.
Yes.
Batman has just been getting progressively worse with every movie. And here he's like making jokes, which is super bizarre. Superman is just Deus Ex Machina, literally.
Mm-hmm.
They bring him back to life and he immediately solves other problems. The Flash is just annoying, and they try to turn him into like a Spider-Man. It's like, oh, I'm the inexperienced one.
Yeah.
Just incredibly lame and weird and not Barry Allen-like. Cyborg is in the movie, which I keep forgetting about. And Aquaman is in the movie, which I only remember because he has a movie coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just there as well. None of them really do anything. I think that Hawkeye accomplishes more in the first Avengers movie than like most of the Justice League do in their own movie.
Well, especially the second one when his arrows can take out robots.
Hawkeye was the best part of Age of Ultron.
He was.
Yeah, honestly.
We need a Hawkeye movie.
That's another topic for another day.
That is.
That's going to be our next episode. Is
all about
Hawkeye movie? Question mark. Marvel planning a Hawkeye movie? I think that'll get the most clicks.
It might.
But yeah, I mean, Hawkeye is cooler than any of these clowns.
Yeah.
He was cooler than any of these clowns in 2012 when he was possessed for half the movie by the Mind Stone. And it's terrible. And Steppenwolf is the worst thing I've ever laid eyes upon. And the mother boxes are literally just DC saying, "Here's our Infinity Gauntlet," except for none of it was previously established.
No.
And when you're going to do a MacGuffin plot, you have to provide investment because of how the characters that you care about are invested in this plot. So when Marvel scatters all the Infinity Stones throughout these different movies, and you have different people centered around each stone, and you have different people, know what's going on with each stone. You have like Doctor Strange with the Time Stone, and the Guardians know about the Power Stone.
They know about.
But with this, it's just like, here are the mother boxes. Here's this MacGuffin plot that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about it. All that you want to see is the Justice League teaming up, except for jokes on you because they suck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's no reason for you to care because this movie is an emotionless corporate wasteland created by a boardroom of morons.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm going to leave off.
That was, wow. That was harsh. It's true, but that was... I think,
for my number one pick, I kind of got to go all out.
Yeah. No, I totally agree that it's, like, it's awful. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the point of it... It was very rushed, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to set up this big movie with characters who we've never seen, we've only seen, a 30-second clip of all three of them in
Of half
Batman
of the
versus
team.
Superman. Yeah.
Right, of half of the team.
Which plot hole, going back to when when Steppenwolf has all those hostages and the Flash doesn't know what to do. I thought he was already an established hero in
Suicide Squad.
Well, that, plus he was also, like, there was video footage of him in Central City in Batman vs. Superman.
Right.
Which makes no sense.
It's literally because they just wanted to have Spider-Man.
Yeah. Which you can still make him a Spider-Man type character, but he can still know what he's doing.
Right.
Like, he can be the humor relief in the movie, the comedic relief in the movie, and still know what to do when in crunch time.
But Spider-Man is also interesting and funny.
Yeah.
You know,
we care just as much about Peter Parker as we do Spider-Man. We're supposed to, at least
Right.
in Homecoming. That's what it feels like.
Right.
We care just as much about Peter Parker and Spider-Man together.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was like, oh, here's the Flash, and then Barry Allen's in it for like 2 seconds, and that's all you get of him.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have his own movie yet. He doesn't have anything established about him, and it's there. It makes no sense.
Right. No, and probably the biggest slap in the face in the entire movie is that the Justice League cannot accomplish anything until they get Superman.
Yeah.
And then Superman just immediately solves everything.
And
It's like they're completely, especially Batman. Like, Batman is like the most useless dude of all time, which is so un-Batman, like it's nauseating. But the Justice League, in and of themselves, like these five other highly powered individuals,
right.
can't do anything until Superman shows up and just fixes the plot, and the movie's over.
Right.
Which isn't true to the Justice League.
And shouldn't the roles have been reversed between Batman and Wonder Woman? Bruce was all about bringing him back, even though in the movie before, in Batman vs. Superman, he tried to kill him. And shouldn't Wonder Woman be the one to want to bring him back, and Bruce is all against it? Like, shouldn't that have been the reverse than, Wonder Woman being mad because they brought Superman back to life? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't fit the character arcs that you've already built for these two characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to completely swap everything and just like, oh, hey, this is going to be this way one movie, then we're going to completely flip it in the next movie without telling you why, it's not going to work.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of that in this movie. I feel like we could do a whole episode breaking down how bad Justice League is.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't want to compare Marvel and DC, but if you're going to have a big event team up movie for the first time ever, like the Avengers,
mm-hmm.
and then you're going to try to do it for DC, compare the movies. Just compare them.
Oh, for sure.
And see what happens. Show them to somebody who's never seen any of the MCU before, and somebody who's never seen any of anything DC before. Show them these movies, and 9 out of 10 of them would most likely pick Avengers.
Hopefully 99 out of 100.
Hopefully 100 out of 100.
In a perfect world.
But
alas,
there are idiots
Justice
out there.
League has tainted our perfect world.
It has, but yeah, I can see why it's your number one.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I have it at 10, I can see why it's your number one. Do you have any other thoughts of anything else, or any other movies that you almost put on your list that you decided not to?
I'm going to try to stop thinking about Justice League before I have to take an ibuprofen.
That's a smart decision. It's a smart decision. And just for you critics out there, I actually almost put 2 of the MCU movies on this list.
Right.
Thor: The Dark World and The Incredible Hulk. I almost put those 2 on it, but they're not that bad. They're bad. They're just not that bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Don't just be mad, because I have more Marvel on this list than I have DC. So, I'm not a DC hater. I love DC. Mm-hmm. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm 50-50 on mine.
Yeah.
I got 10 DC movies, 10 Marvel movies.
Yeah. So, we're not DC haters. We love them so much that we hate to see them where they're at this point.
Exactly.
And so, we're giving our honest opinion, our honest thought on it. If you don't like it, sorry. But yeah, that's been our top 20 worst superhero movie list. It's been fun. This was actually a fun a fun episode to do. Next week's episode is all about our top 20 best superhero movies of all time, which will be a much more enlightening and happy list than this was. But do you have any final thoughts or any final plugs that you want to throw out there?
I think I'm good. I think that my tirade against Justice League kind of closed off my thoughts in a good way.
Good. Jason's life is about to change forever in a couple weeks, so he's very excited about that.
I am.
Hopefully he's excited.
I'm very excited. Yes.
But yeah, that's going to do it for episode 8 of the Nerd Crew podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at I'm Andy York. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at the Nerd Crew podcast. Also, subscribe to our new YouTube channel, the Nerd Crew, where you can listen to all of our audio, at least this week's audio of the podcast there. Hopefully pretty soon we'll be able to upload a lot more stuff on there at some point. But also check us out on Facebook. You can follow our Facebook page, the Nerd Crew podcast. And I think that's all the plugs I have to put in, all the self-promotion I have to put out there. But yeah, like I said, next week is all about our top 20 best superhero movies, so come back and check that out. But once again, guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a wonderful day.